Hi divas, welcome to my channel or welcome back. My name is Maddie and today we are talking about the most important thing ever. Recently, I watched a video about the American Girl doll movies and it unlocked a whole section of my brain I actually forgot existed. When I was a child, I was an American Girl doll connoisseur, you may say. I wanted them all, as you might imagine, but that unfortunately was not a reality considering they were $100 each. And with inflation, my girls are even more than they were then. So badly did I want to be an American Girl, despite already being an American Girl. They all just had something special about them, like a hobby or a characteristic that I felt I just did not have. I didn't like playing sports, I was not an investigative journalist, and I wasn't particularly skilled at anything, so I took it upon myself to steal their identities. You may be wondering, Maddie, why is this relevant? You should never wonder. Everything I say is always relevant. I had 3 American Girl dolls as a child. The first one I ever got was Kanani, the second one was McKenna, and the third one was Grace, aka Olivia Rodrigo. All girl of the years, by the way. Unlucky for me, I did in fact move houses when I was a kid, and none of them came with me. So for my birthday last year, I took it upon myself to buy a Kanani doll from eBay. So shout out to that person on eBay who was selling it for like $200. I know that's a lot. I mean, she was the girl of the year in 2011, so I'll take what I can take. Buying this doll on eBay unleashed a joy in me I did not know was physically possible. And right as I did that, I've had a thought simmering in my head ever since about the second diva who is so near and dear to my heart. My girl, McKenna Brooks. McKenna Brooks is a 2012 girly, meaning that she was the girl of the year in 2012. I received my McKenna doll sometime after she was announced, after I begged my mom continuously after seeing it in the American Girl doll catalog. Did I already have Kanani, the previous girl of the year? Well, yes. This was the start of my collecting era. McKenna is canonically a 4th grader and she is a gymnast. This is all she talks and cares about. She lives in Seattle, Washington, and she has 2 younger twin sisters. One of her main problems that she has to face is balancing school and gymnastics, which becomes a little bit of a challenge because she falls behind in her schoolwork, and she also struggles with reading comprehension. She also breaks her ankle, so that also causes a problem. The McKenna doll herself comes in a ridiculous outfit. I kind of hate everything about it, but it was 2012 and it is screaming 2012, so I really can't fault it for that alone. Of course, like many American Girl dolls, she came with a plethora of other things that you could buy separately for at least $30. I in fact had most of these, which is shocking to me because the doll itself was expensive enough. I'm shocked that my mother was willing to put in more money. I'm pretty sure my birthday that year went crazy. McKenna had 7 alternate outfits, 2 practice outfits, a pajama set, a school outfit, a fancy outfit, a warm-up outfit, and performance outfit. I tried my best today with my McKenna Brooks cosplay. Is she serving? I have a little bit of blue. It's not the exact same, but these shorts I think are pretty damn accurate. I don't have her decal on the shirt, but I don't have a budget for this, so. Did I tone my hair darker specifically for this video? Well, yes I did. She also had an accessory set. She had a dog named Cooper, a cast and crutches set, a gymnast beam and bar set, a loft bed, a team gear set, and apparently she had rain gear. She lives in Seattle, so I guess this makes sense. I did not have her rain gear for context. I remember in the catalog seeing the beam and bar set and I really wanted it, and my mom wouldn't buy it for me, and that's so fair. That is absolutely so fair of her. When I was a kid, I really did want her bed though. Her loft bed is so iconic and cute, and one of my friends when I was younger did in fact have a loft bed. I was the most jealous a jealous person could be. McKenna also had an app called Gymnastic. I'm sure that says Gymtastic, if I'm not mistaken. Apparently I really couldn't speak this day, or I can't read, one of the two, I'm not sure. I remember having this on our family iPad. It's quite a memory to relive. It's kind of like Jetpack Joyride, but instead of the little man, it's McKenna and she does flips on beams. But like the beams go higher. So I mean, it's kind of not like Jetpack Joyride at all. I'm so sorry for that analogy. It was horrible. I'm sure I could find gameplay and put it right on the screen. Editing me again when I was looking around for proof that this game existed, because it's kind of like nowhere. It's lost media at this point pretty much. I found out that there was desktop games. So here's a little gameplay of those. The first one is kind of similar to Gymtastic, if you will, except it's vertical rather than horizontal. It's incredible. The technology that they had back in the day, it's astounding. And then the second one is actually kind of more fun. Playing as McKenna, helping her mom in the cafe that they run, and you get to like go do little tasks. I thought that one was a little bit enjoyable, I won't lie. Just letting you know that they exist, and then all my links for everything will be in the description, so if you wanted to go like do this yourself, you def can. It's probably going to be under the title of Rhett and Links, because if I can bring up Rhett and Link, I will. Now, as I stated, McKenna does gymnastics. Because I loved McKenna so much when I was younger, and I also had no personality, oh my god, shout out Natalie, and I had no personality, I joined gymnastics. I did gymnastics for at least 2 years. I had to call my mom to verify that number because I truly could not remember. It was actually crazy that there just happened to be a gymnastics studio where I lived, and this type of convenience has only boded horribly for my future. I had quite a love-hate relationship with gymnastics. Oh my god. I really liked the concept of doing gymnastics, but to be quite frank, I was shit at it. I am naturally not athletically gifted. This is something I've had to come to terms with in my life, and I have at this point my upper body strength non-existent, something that is very necessary in gymnastics. My balance also not great, but none of that stopped me, and I continued to do it because it made me feel like someone I admired, someone I looked up to, someone I canonically was older than at the time, I think. And that someone is specifically the McKenna Brooks representation in McKenna Shoots for the Stars. Like many of her American Girl counterparts, McKenna also got her own movie titled McKenna Shoots for the Stars. I have owned this movie since it released in 2012, and I have seen it way more times than I can count. I'm pretty sure this movie alone was the driving force in encouraging me to join gymnastics. This is what the entire video was building up to, by the way. I just wanted to talk about the movie, and I centered everything else around this. So during the opening montage, we meet our girl, McKenna Brooks, played by Jade Pettyjohn, who I obviously recognize as Chloe from Henry Danger. I know it's very unfortunate, but this was before that, so it actually doesn't count and it doesn't matter at all. She is practicing the beam in her practice outfit. We love lore accuracy. One thing about McKenna is that she is dedicated and an overachiever. So much so that her coach tells her her beam routine is too advanced. Routine, more like. So she tells McKenna that she needs to dial it back, but McKenna, she will not take this. She says, I have to impress the judges at the qualifying meet so that I can go to the Olympics. She is 10 years old, by the way. Then she has a convo with her friend Tulane about how super cool her back handspring dismount was off of the beam. See, I wish I knew these things off the top of my head when I'm reading my script, but unfortunately, I am not well versed enough in the gymnastics world. It's been too long. They also talk about going to the Olympics in 2016. They are 10 years old, in case you forgot. It is also canonically 2012. I think that there are bigger fish to fry, in fact. Tulane in this movie is, spoiler alert, kind of the worst friend ever. She kind of sucks a lot, but they are children, so at the end of the day, can we really blame her for acting the way she does? Perhaps yes, but she is a child, so that is something to keep in mind. So Tulane starts talking shit to McKenna about this new girl who joined their team, whose name is Sierra, for no reason at all, and I have thoughts about this later. Okay, we'll get back to this. Some important lore that we learn right here, right now, is that Tulane is in gymnastics because her mom wants her to succeed for reasons we will also get to later. Tulane also warns McKenna about Megan Murphy, who is a girl from the rival studio, and she's the only other person we ever hear of in this movie, by the way, so she's kind of my diva for that reason alone. Shout out Megan Murphy for real. But at the qualifying meet, which we just talked about a little bit ago, they're only taking 3 girls for all of the local teams for the regional team. And Megan Murphy is canonically the best one, so she's making sure that McKenna knows what her competition is. And McKenna gets a little bit worried because of this news, because her coach doesn't want her to do the crazy little dismount that she wanted to do. Then McKenna goes home with her grandma and her 2 younger sisters, and her grandma looks just like her coach. The actresses look so similar that as a kid I thought that they were the same person, and I constantly got confused between the two. And even when I watched it again for this video, I also did in fact get confused once again. At dinner we meet McKenna's parents and her dog Cooper. Shout out Cooper. McKenna's dad reminds her of their annual family camping trip, and we will put a pin in this for later. This will not come up until later, so let's not think about it right now. And then afterwards, McKenna's parents pull her aside and they tell her that she needs to start seeing a tutor, which is so out of left field. She was having a nice dinner. What the heck is going on? Because she's falling behind in school, and so her teacher suggested that she go see a tutor. She shuts this down immediately because she's like, no, I have gymnastics, you silly goose. Why would I be doing that? And she promises to go study in her room right after. In her room, we have her iconic purple loft bed. She also has her pet hamster Polka Dot, which I do not recall at all. During her studying, she reads one sentence of her science textbook, and then she gives up. And that is so real. The next day, she goes to school in her school outfit, and she asks Tulane and Sierra if they're nervous about the science quiz that they're just about to have. And pause. Sierra is in their 3-person friend group, and Tulane was literally talking shit about her yesterday, which is crazy. I don't understand what's going on here. This is wild. They both say no, but McKenna is low-key nerdy because she finds the readings confusing. She doesn't understand what's going on. Her teacher, Mr. Wu, number 1, hottie. But number two, he's low-key throwing shade at McKenna because he asked the class if they studied. Rude. Why are we calling out my girl? During this quiz, McKenna is struggling, to say the least. She cannot understand what is going on in this stupid quiz. I remember this scene so vividly. I don't know why. When I was taking tests as a child, this is always what I would think of while taking the damn test. So that's really interesting. But this is one of the only scenes I vividly remembered from the movie. Because she is struggling so much, she decides to take a little peek at Sierra's answers. And then she gets caught cheating by Mr. Wu. She was not discreet enough, that's for sure. So when she gets home, her parents force her to go see the tutor because she got caught cheating, of course. And then they also explain that Mr. Wu thinks she has problems with reading comprehension. She hates this plan so much, but she has to do it in order to continue doing gymnastics. So here in the movie is a random overview shot of the Space Needle, which is reminding you that this takes place in Seattle, but you would never know that if they didn't show you this shot. So it's like not lore important at all that she lives in Seattle. The next day, she goes to meet her tutor in her OG doll outfit, and in real life, it's a lot cuter than the doll version, so props to that, I guess. She meets her tutor, Josie, who is in a wheelchair, and she calls her wheelchair Lightning, and this is really important to the story, so keep that. So they're studying in the school library, and McKenna sees Sierra walk into the library, given that it is the school library, and so she hides under the table because she is embarrassed to have a tutor. The absurdities of how this will end up going, I can't. Because of the tutoring session, McKenna is late for gymnastics, so she has to make up a lie to Tulane to explain why she was late. Her being embarrassed of having a tutor causes so many problems in this movie that could have been avoided very easily, but she is a child, so once again, we have to understand where she's coming from. It makes the movie viewing experience very frustrating, that's for sure. At her next tutoring session, McKenna is, number one, in this fuck-ass outfit. I was so sad that they put this in the movie. I hate this outfit. It looks ridiculous. And number two, when she's reading, the words on the page suddenly float up into the air. So that's interesting. I also vividly remember this scene happening. After she's reading her passage, McKenna says she doesn't remember anything she read, or like doesn't remember like the context or the story of what was happening. So then Josie suggests that she read a kindergarten book, and McKenna gets so offended by this that she literally walks out and says, I need a new tutor. And I mean, she's in 4th grade, so I guess I would also be kind of offended. I'd be like, why do I need to read a kindergarten book? We then get a montage of her cycling through some tutors, and they all really suck. So Mr. Wu tells her that she has to go back to Josie, and she's like, okay, fine. Whatever. Right after this, McKenna goes to gymnastics demonstrations, which is like the routines that they've been working on for the regional competition, but they're just showing their parents for whatever reason. So I just wanted to add this for anyone who's not super familiar with gymnastics, because I had to remind myself what was going on. But there's like 4 sections of the sport, and for women specifically. I'm not talking about men's because we don't care about them right now. But the 4 main ones are vault, uneven bars, balance beam, and tumbling. This knowledge will not be important for later. I just felt like saying this, but they do routines at the end. So when I say these things, maybe you can have a visual of what's going on. During the demonstrations, we get to see Sierra and Tulane's floor routines and McKenna's beam routine. They don't show all 4 of them for some reason. I don't know. Maybe they're not doing all 4. Maybe they're just doing those ones. I don't know. This was something I really didn't remember much about. I don't know the ins and outs of gymnastics, but I was kind of under the impression that you all did the same routine because that's what we did at my studio. But apparently, they all have different routines that they're doing, which is so diva and so cool of them. Anywho, McKenna is in her performance leotard, which is very interesting and I will get to later. During her routine, McKenna is attempting to do her big ol' flippy flip, and she decides not to listen to her coach. She said, no, I'm gonna do my big flippy flip. And because of this, she does not land correctly, and she breaks her ankle. Clock that she broke her ankle though, because so many people will try and tell you that she broke her leg, which is false. It is incorrect. She breaks her ankle, and also, if she broke her leg, I think her cast would be not just around her ankle, if I'm not mistaken. At least she didn't have PBL. You know PBLs? What's PBL? Peanut butter leg. I unironically centered that whole bit around that joke, so. This whole scene is shot so dramatically, and I love it. It is that dramatic of an event. Not as dramatic, though, as McKenna ripping all of her gymnastics posters off the wall when she gets home, because she is so upset that she broke her ankle. This, in fact, is girlhood. At school, presumably the next day, he's promoted. Mr. Wu says that he's really sorry to hear about her injury, and you can tell his actor is Canadian because of the way he says sorry. I watched enough Hayden Christensen movies in my life to know what an authentic Canadian sorry sounds like. I can clock it from a mile away. McKenna is still going to gymnastics practice despite being in a boot. Don't ask me why. I don't know the logistics behind that, but she's there. So then her and Tulane go walking around the studio, and they run into a practice for the rhythmic gymnasts, and Tulane starts telling a little story about how she wished she never quit dance, clocking information for later. And then in the same breath, she complains about Sierra. All right. And accuses McKenna of having other friends other than her. This is, girl, so confusing. McKenna then goes to her mom's coffee shop, which is a good reminder that this does in fact take place in Seattle. McKenna complains to her mom that she doesn't want to have to go back to having a tutor, and then her mom tells her this story about how she also was embarrassed one time because she couldn't do things herself. McKenna doesn't listen to this story at all. She does not get the message in the slightest. She does not give a fuck about what her mother is saying. At her tutoring session the next day, McKenna is running away from Sierra once again in the library, and she accidentally pulls the fire alarm. And this was all for nothing, might I add, because Sierra literally sees her mere seconds later talking to Josie about being embarrassed to have a tutor. So the context clues were all there, and Sierra finds out anyway. Then at practice, Sierra tells her that she also had a tutor once, and that's why she gets straight A's now, but she was also kind of embarrassed to have a tutor. So she, understands what she's going through. I've never had a tutor. I was, in fact, the tutor, so I don't really know what it feels like to be the one in that position, but, I'm sympathizing with these girls. Also, Tulane, at the beginning of the movie, I did not mention this, she complains to McKenna that Sierra said that she got straight A's, and so that's why they included this line in here. It's a weird thing to complain about. Yeah, she said she got straight A's. Okay. Anywho, Sierra promises McKenna that she'll keep her secret, and while all of this is happening, Tulane is just watching them talk from, a few feet away, and she just looks at McKenna, disapprovingly, which they're all 10 years old. They are all 10 years old. But now she has reason to believe that McKenna is hanging out with people that are not her, which is not a real problem, but she's 10. Because of this talk, McKenna turns a new leaf, and she is willing to try to listen to Josie and what her plan is in this whole tutoring business. And so during the montage, we see McKenna improving her comprehension skills and practicing bars with the big old boot on. Duality, for sure. I think it's twice a week. She does tutoring twice a week, if I'm not mistaken. So she has to leave class early those days, and Tulane starts to pick up on this knowledge that she's leaving early, and McKenna tells her that she has physical therapy. But one day, Tulane just decides to follow her, so she does this elaborate scheme of following her. It's a bit ridiculous, but the point of the matter is that she sees her with Josie and confronts McKenna and is essentially like, you lied, you're a liar, you're not in physical therapy, which is true. She did in fact lie about that, but she's like, you're hanging out with people without me. And so then McKenna has to come clean about the whole situation, and she's like, yeah, this is my tutor and I was embarrassed, so I didn't tell you. Instead of Tulane, being understanding, she storms off. So do you remember the camping trip that I mentioned at the beginning of this? And I said, yeah, keep that in mind because it's not important right now. Well, it's important right now because that was supposed to happen during the summer. It's canonically not the summer. I don't know what time it is. It doesn't really explicitly say. Apparently, McKenna's dad has some problems during that summer weekend. So now they're going the next weekend. But since McKenna and Tulane are low-key beefing right now, she decides to invite Josie instead. This is so awesome and so cool because McKenna's dad finds a camping site that is wheelchair accessible instead of the one they usually go to so that Josie can come. And McKenna is also in a wheelchair for this trip specifically, and she names her wheelchair Thunder. Thunder to Josie's lightning. Yes, see, all things are making sense. During this trip, Josie helps McKenna see what life is like through other people's shoes. She also complains about Tulane and how she's low-key the worst, and Josie is like, well, why do you think she's the worst? And McKenna deduces that she acts that way because her mom is really hard on her, which, good on McKenna. And she also says well, it's not my fault, so why take it out on me? Also, great thinking, McKenna. Also, McKenna is in her PJ set. Sometime later, McKenna finally gets the hang of reading. She's got it all up there now. She's good to go. And this is all fantastic news, but also not for long. To catch you up on some lore, Josie really likes horses, and she's always wanted to ride one. At the beginning of their tutoring sessions, McKenna's like, well, girl, go ride one. Lo and behold, there is a ranch nearby and that does horse rides for people who are disabled. So the stars are aligning. And the day that McKenna gets her reading all in check, she's good to go. Josie invites McKenna to go to the ride that she has on Thursday because she's going to ride a big horse instead of a pony, and she wants McKenna to be there. But the problem is McKenna cannot go on Thursday because Thursday is the day she's supposed to get her cast off so she can start practicing for the qualifying meet for gymnastics. She's still competing in the qualifying meet, by the way. She's been looking forward to getting her cast off for this. She tells Josie about this predicament of hers, and she uses some poorly choice words to explain that she wants to go back to the way things used to be in her life. They have a falling out over this, but a scene later, a montage later, if you will, McKenna realizes that her friendship with Josie is more important than getting her cast off, so she decides to go with Josie. And at the ranch, Tulane shows up, and McKenna's like, what the heck? But it turns out Josie invited her, actually. She's like, you guys need to work this shit out. This is low-key messy of her, but at the same time, it does work. They are friends again. They worked it out on the remix, for real. And then McKenna finally gets her cast off in ways I will argue about later, I'm not really sure. And she's finally going back to practice. Good for her. In this next scene, she's in her practice Leo and sweater. She's on the beam and she keeps psyching herself out and can't stick her landing because obviously she broke her ankle last time, so that's completely fair. And then the night before the qualifying meet, she is studying for her report that Mr. Wu assigned to them that is due the day after the qualifying meet, which is beyond rude. I don't think he knew that information, but I feel like he did. The amount she talks about gymnastics, I think he did know this, and he did this on purpose. Why is he beefing with a 10-year-old girl? I don't know. Anywho, her grandma gives her a necklace, which is the same as Doll McKenna's necklace, that has a little M and a star charm on it. Star? One claimed she's shooting for the stars. I want this necklace so badly, so if anyone knows where I can get one, that would be so cool and awesome. Finally, the qualifying meet is here. And McKenna's studio is all in the practice Leo. Why, may I ask, is it called the practice Leo? If this is the competition of the movie, this is all we've been building up to, and they're all wearing the practice Leo. And the performance Leo, if you recall, we saw once for a performance specifically for the parents, not for anyone else. Things are not making sense here. Before the floor section starts, Tulane goes missing. So McKenna finds her in the bathroom, and Tulane explains that her mom is putting all this pressure on her and she doesn't want to do gymnastics anymore and she hates it and all of that nonsense. And the reason her mom put so much pressure on her is because her sister did gymnastics, but then she got injured, and now she's putting all the pressure on Tulane to be like her sister. McKenna then encourages her to just go out and have fun, like the rhythmic gymnast that they saw like 40 minutes ago. Every detail in this movie is somehow important, and if you didn't remember that particular scene, then this line of dialogue would not make sense in the slightest. This works, and Tulane's like, sure, you know what, girl, I'll just go out there and do my thing, which we love. We love it. We then get a fantastic montage of our girlies Sierra, Tulane, and McKenna's floor, bars, and beam routines. And Megan Murphy. We must never forget about Megan Murphy. She's literally the only other person we see perform. Shout out Queen, for real. In McKenna's beam routine, which we get the entire extent of, she is slaying. Slaying for sure. But then she gets to her dismount, and she gets all nervous and remembers this breathing technique that she taught to Josie during the horse riding thing that I didn't explain. The horse gets a little bit scared, and then Josie gets scared, but then McKenna gets the plastic bag that scared the horse, and then life is okay. During that, she taught Josie this breathing technique where you literally like breathe in and out. Fantastic. I think it's blue skies in, gray skies out. Because of this, she's like standing at the edge of the beam for a while, just like breathing and looking at Josie remembering all of this information. And I'm like, are they gonna deduct points for that? You know, this is a movie, who cares? Anywho, she sticks her landing, because of course she does. The judges get like all their scoring in, and it's a big old tense moment, but obviously I know what happens because I'm literally reading this to you. But it's revealed that the 3 spots for the regional team are going to Tulane, Megan Murphy, shout out Megan Murphy for real, and the GOAT, our girl McKenna. After everyone celebrates and there's a big old group hug, Tulane finally tells her mom that she doesn't want to do gymnastics anymore, and her mom's like, girl, okay. And so Tulane goes to do rhythmic gymnastics instead, which if you don't know the difference, I shouldn't be the one to explain it to you. There's like more stuff involved. That's like with the wands and things. So Tulane drops the regional team, and so her spot goes to Sierra, which I assume was the runner-up, because that would be the only way that makes sense. But shout out Sierra. McKenna, and the rest of her team for that matter, are all in their team gear set, which I forgot to mention. So apologies for that. And then at the very end, McKenna is giving her report. It's about this book she read about famous gymnasts. She explains that you need to find balance and help from other people, aka the message of the movie at the very end. Thank you, McKenna. She's also in her fancy outfit, which I didn't know existed until I started researching for this video. After her speech, which is in a large crowd of people, I don't know where they're doing the speech and why everyone she knows is there. Besides the point, she goes to hug Josie and Tulane, who are the group of 3 now. So fuck Sierra, I guess. Like, what? My one question I had for this film is, did Miss Jade Pettyjohn have to learn gymnastics for the role? I know she is a stunt double for many a shot, but like, how much did she have to learn? During this, I was reminded of all the times I watched this when I was a child. And I think it's so fun to rewatch things from like when you were younger, because I remembered a few scenes so vividly, but also remembered none of the plot points quite well at all. I was fully convinced for years that McKenna was like ableist. I don't know why. Maybe I had some comprehension problems of my own, but I fully thought that was something she had to overcome in this movie. We love it when I'm wrong. wrong. I was also really convinced she had dyslexia, specifically. You know, you could make a case that they're like in the same ballpark, but I don't know for sure. So don't take anything I say as Bible. Also, it reminded me that when I was a kid, I really wanted to be on crutches because I thought it was really cool that McKenna was on crutches, which is so interesting because she hates being on crutches. It is something she actively dislikes. I'm just shocked that I got the opposite message. I don't know, I guess I just thought it looked really cool. It's kind of like when kids would get a cast and then you got to sign it, which I also probably wanted at one point. So, like I stated earlier, McKenna only cares about gymnastics. I also wish I could be as passionate about something like she is. Sometimes in this movie it feels a bit comical how much she thinks about it, but then again, she is a child, and that's kind of what it feels like to have an interest in something at that age. I would know. I was once that age, and I was the exact same way, just with very different things. Is this movie profound? To me, yes. Thank you for asking. The message of this movie, obviously, listen to the people around you who are trying to support you and find balance between whatever it is that you struggle finding balance between. This was my one problem that I just didn't really understand, and maybe it's because I never had a cast. I don't understand why McKenna couldn't just go get her cast off and then go with Josie. Or is it like an appointment thing where you just like have to go on a certain day? But even then, if she skips her appointment, then like would she not have to make another appointment? I don't know. I didn't care to look it up because I didn't think I was going to find an answer that was helpful. But if anyone's ever had a cast, let me know. I feel like there was a lot of problems that could have been avoided, but I'm not in charge. I didn't write the movie. The point of that is the gesture. So that's all that matters. Who cares? For my birthday a few years ago, I actually bought an American Girl doll at the American Girl doll store in Franklin, Tennessee. Mere hours before, I was stared down by Ash and Irwin at the 5 Seconds of Summer show. We were all there. We remember this. That was where I got Isabel, who you might recognize from some of my videos. Here's the diva herself. Last time she was in my video, I believe she quoted Ian from Smosh, so she can do it again. Shut up! Now, Isabel is a new addition to the historical collection. She's from 1999, which is technically historical, which sounds crazy to say. She also has a twin sister, Nikki, who my sister has the doll of. We are sisters who have sister dolls. When I bought Isabel that fateful day, I decided to get her because I thought she looked like me. I was blonde at the time, and my eyes are occasionally green, depending on what outfit I'm wearing. Obviously, Isabel, as a doll, she's got her own identity. She's 9 years old, she has a twin sister, she celebrates Hanukkah and Christmas, she plays tennis, she lives in Seattle, like my girl McKenna, shout out, and she loves the Spice Girls. But I did not, in fact, start playing tennis the moment I got Isabel. Although it does sound kind of fun, and I would like to do tennis, but that's besides the point. I did not become Isabel. I like to think of her as kind of my mini-me. She's kind of like a reflection of me in a certain way. But unlike my past self, I did not have to become her because I am already interesting. And I think that's what American Girl is all about. I think. I don't know, man. I just started talking. I'm not really sure what any of that meant. Here are my divas in their glory. They're so cute. I freaking love them. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you had or have any American Girl dolls, comment which ones below and how they influence you in your life. Did you open a shave ice business because Kanani worked at one? I'm sure I wanted to. Please like the video if you enjoyed and perhaps check out one of my other ones. As the time I'm filming this, I have no idea what ones I've already uploaded and what the most recent one is. But I've recently learned that I've uploaded far more videos than I originally thought. That is news I did not in fact want to hear, but maybe check that out if you're interested. That's all for me today though. Bye-bye. Guys, they're so freaking cute. Okay, Kanani, I know your arm is falling because your limbs are like not where they should be, but it does not mean that we can fall during my outro.